Okay, let's see here. Donations are at an even $600 to go, so I want to get that in. And the next Wednesday, the 18th, will be the last compensatory concept show of the year. So keep, excuse me, keep that in mind. Okay, today we're going to introduce a topic from one of our Gmailers, and it's entitled "Those Who Need the Most Help," and we'll get further into that. Let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is on the line live from Washington D.C. And Mr. Fuller, as usual, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
Okay, at least at that end, you're coming in pretty good. Okay, let me go right to the Gmails, because I do believe, unless something happens, that the phone calls are going to be limited if we get any at all. But it's not the callers that are doing that. I think somebody else is doing that. Anyway, this person by the name of WG said this: "Hello, Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby. I truly appreciate the efforts you and Mr. Fuller put forth each week to make sure listeners are sharp with their codified behaviors. I concur with a previous caller in that the code book be made into a PDF for the masses to be able to use compensatory logic and have the code book in their cell phone devices. Mr. Fuller can still get paid with this method. Also consider auto booking it for those who cannot read. This is a way for potential readers to listen to the book read aloud by Mr. Fuller. My question is, Mr. Fuller, is I have listened to Mr. Fuller say time and time again to help those who need the most, and he has given who need help the most, and he has given examples of who the most is. He has mentioned physical attributes such as handicap or someone who is in an ambulance need priority care over regular drivers. Mr. Fuller, does this mean that we should always start the measurement of, quote, most help, end of quote, with those who are physically incapable? And does this mean that physically incapable non-white people are the group of people who are in need of the most help? That's two questions. Is this measurement of those who need most help modeled from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but from a white supremacy reality? So let's go to the first question. Does this mean that we should always start the measurement of, quote, the most help, end of quote, with those who are physically incapable?
Not necessarily. If the person that needs the most help is the person that needs the most help, but it depends on the circumstances of each individual. See, I'm talking about a daily thing, a moment by moment thing, wherever you happen to be. I'm not speaking broadly, because speaking broadly would be too broad. I'm talking about the essence of justice is that you help the person that needs the most constructive help at the time that they need it. And that's just on a daily basis. That's the way the entire world should run. And wherever each individual happens to be, whomever needs the most help, it might be yourself, starting with yourself. You will always have to start with yourself, because if you're not in position to help yourself, you're not in position to help anybody else. And I'll give an added illustration for that. Say you are the person who is in the boat with someone, two people in a boat. The boat turns over. Now, in order for you, if you are the strongest person and the other person has problems swimming, or the other person is kind of under the strength, has less strength than what you have, then you give that person the most help that you can possibly give that person. But in the case of that person being an expert swimmer and you are not, then you probably will need the most help. So that's just the way that works. Whomever, whatever, just incident by incident. That's what you go by. That's the criteria. Now, not every situation will be that simple to figure out who needs the most help. But your mind should immediately go to who needs the most constructive help at this particular moment. And that's just help with simple things, not necessarily what you might call an emergency or crisis, what we call, quote, unquote, a crisis. But it means just every day. You work in an office building, and there's a lady down the hall who seems to be struggling with her workload. And everybody's talking about, well, she's holding up the line here. I mean, and she's messing with everybody else's work and whatnot. There seems to be a problem with Sarah, whatever her name might be. So you look into that. You're a person in a quote-unquote supervisory position, or just a person that just works with Miss Sarah. So you just see, what is the problem with Sarah? Because she's, by her not doing her part of the work, she's making it difficult for everybody else, and that's making it difficult for her. So she needs the most help in doing what she's trying to do to help the rest of us. So we all look into that. A spirit of, they call it cooperation, having everybody, cooperating one with another. And that's basically it. That's in order to achieve what? This thing called justice.
Yes.
And that's, and the other part is you make sure that you don't mistreat anybody in the process of doing that. In the process of helping Miss Sarah, you don't mistreat someone else. I mean, someone else might even be you. Okay. But nobody's supposed to be mistreated. That's the two elements of justice. Guaranteeing that no one is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Okay.
That will be the compensatory ideal way for the entire world.
Oh, okay.
That's the whole point for replacing the system of racism, which is designed intentionally to harm people and to guarantee that the people who need help the most are not going to get it.
Okay.
That's what the system of racism does.
Okay. Now, you brought it up, which is proper, that we're speaking about, and these are your words, the essence of justice. Now, WG brought it down to a physical level. And let's say his second question was, does this mean that physically incapable non-white people are the group of people who are in need of the most help? Your answer would be? Yes.
Non-white people are under the system of white supremacy. So if you're under the system of white supremacy, you are incapacitated. We call it being held back. Excuse me.
Yes.
Being held down, being kept out. So therefore, people who are in this position need the most help. So that's just the logic of it. That's the whole purpose of getting rid of racism. If racism was some type of mysterious political system that guaranteed that everybody who needed help got it, and guaranteed that nobody's mistreated, why be against racism? That would just be a word that would mean that everybody's on the same, everybody is as they should be. People are treating each other the way that people should be treated. If that was the definition of racism, then we would all embrace racism. But that's not what racism is for. Racism is about guaranteeing that a whole bunch of people are going to be mistreated and that huge numbers of people who need help are definitely not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what racism is about. That's why it needs to be replaced with a system called justice.
Okay.
The words don't mean anything until you give them definitions. And we've found that, racism, the way that it has been characterized, some people say that racism is a fine thing. It's a good thing. I mean, you have order when you have racism.
Mm-hmm.
Some people can point out, and there's an argument that can be made for it, or an explanation. Racism can accomplish a lot, which it does. Racism has accomplished a lot in the way of material things. You might have a discussion or an argument saying it's accomplished more than any other system of government as far as material things are concerned, achieving material things, putting things in place, discoveries and all of this type of thing, scientific discoveries, finding out how to get things done. You can get a lot of things done through the process of racism, which is mistreating people and dominating people on the basis of color. You can get a lot of things done. So looking at it from that perspective, okay, well, we need scientific achievements and all like that. We need someone, to whip people in line and make them sure that they're all in line with that. Say, but what is the downside of it? The downside of that is you destroy people in the process of acquiring material things.
Mm-hmm.
Too many people are destroyed, not just in the process of trying to get it done. And the things that they're dealing with are difficult to do, but it's designed to deliberately destroy people, destroy their minds, destroy their bodies in order to achieve material things. And in order for people a category of people called white people, to feel good about themselves. That's a way of feeling good. This is a want. It feels that need for glory. So white people are taught, if you want glory, one excellent way of getting it is through the process of practicing racism. And you get a lot of glory. You get a lot of chances to feel good about yourself by mistreating somebody else. And so that's what the essence of racism is about.
Mm-hmm. Okay. TalkTimeAtRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here's a few that I'm going to share with you. Stairway to Heaven, Conversation with Don Carina, and On the Move with Sports Celts. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTameAtRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTameAtRadio.com homepage and see the updated version of the shows that Talk Tame It Radio carries. If you would like, give the show a listen. We call that sampling in the business. See if you like it or if you don't. All this from TalkTameAtRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. And today's subject is those that need the most help. And the last 20 minutes or 15 minutes or so, Mr. Fuller has given an example of that from a question that was from our Gmailers. Keep in mind, if you are listening to this program and you are trying to call in, we are efforting to make it so that you can call in. Those familiar with the show understand that the usual suspects are in play, and we are working feverishly to get it so that we can get the calls through. Okay, let's continue with this question. The third question in his trilogy of question, Mr. Fuller, he says this: is this measurement of those who need the most help modeled from Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but from a white supremacy reality?
Oh, I don't know about.
Maslow?
No, I don't know anything about him. I just say that the concept that I came up with, the definition, was just based on logic. Because everything that should be the way that it ought to be comes through the process of figuring out through logic. And what is logic? Logic is about finding out how things work best.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and try to and you divide everything into results, and the results is going to be something that is constructive or something that is non-constructive. That's the logic. And everybody on the planet should be thinking in terms, when you wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, what is the most constructive thing that you can do with the circumstances that you're in?
Okay.
Well, always go for the most constructive thing.
Okay.
I pick up the papers every morning, and I look and I read, whatever is being presented to me. Somebody robbed somebody and whatnot. So immediately my mind goes to, well, somebody got robbed on the street and got shot in the process. Is that constructive? Is that the most constructive way to go about acquiring things? By killing someone and snatching a purse or something and running with it down the street, and then go and hide behind some bushes, or in the case of something I saw this morning, somebody was doing something, they shot a law enforcement officer. I don't know the details about all that. And it was a great neighborhood shootout, you might say.
Yes, I saw that. Yes.
Yes, and in a place called New Jersey.
Yes.
And what the details of all that was about, I tend to believe that whatever was going on was not the most constructive thing that a person could do.
Yes.
See, something non-constructive was going on there. I mean, I don't know the details, but it looks like from the results, several people dead, about 6 people, I think.
I think that's correct.
Yes, from the results, there was some non-constructive activity that started that.
Yes.
I would just guess. That's just my guess.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it could have been constructive, but I don't think so.
Yes, in Jersey City, New
Because
Jersey.
The results were definitely not constructive.
Right.
Of whatever was going on.
Mm-hmm.
It was not worth it. Whatever was happening, it was not worth it.
Yes.
On account of the results. It was definitely not worth it. It seems like whatever was happening, someone could have gone about doing it in a different way.
Yes.
And achieved a more constructive outcome.
Yes, this was over in, I believe the news said Jersey City, New Jersey, where this, what you're talking about, took place in lives, including...
I saw something on television about that, too. I mean, it looked like there was a lot of gunshots.
A lot.
Pop, 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 all over the place. Now, is that constructive? Is that what you call the most constructive activity that you can have in a quote-unquote Mr. Rogers neighborhood? I mean, I don't think so.
Right.
See, but like I said, the main point that I'm making, we want a world where everything that is done has a constructive result.
Okay.
I mean, it's not a new concept. It's a very old concept. But I'm just saying we've got to figure out a way to get there and get there in quickly.
Yes.
We shouldn't draw this out. I mean, for another umpteenth number of centuries, thousands of years. I mean, there's nothing in recorded history where you have a system of justice anywhere on the planet. Nothing in recorded history. So we actually should be trying to achieve something that has never been done in recorded history.
Okay.
And that's a world dominated by justice.
Yes. Now, for those who wanted to know who Abraham Maslow was, and Mr. Fuller indicated that he's not familiar with him or his works. He was an American psychologist, Mr. Fuller, who was best known for creating Maslow's hierarchy of needs, a theory of psychological health excuse me, psychological health predicated on fulfilling innate human needs in priority, culminating in self-accusation. I've heard of him before, Abraham Maslow. Okay, WG, Mr. Fuller did answer your question, and I hope that you got the answer that you wanted. Mr. Fuller, this question, and keep in mind we're doing Gmails right now because of issues that we are having with the phone lines. Those familiar with the show know that the usual suspects are in play. They actually were in play last night, but anyway. This comes from a brother from the concept called New Guinea, or French New Guinea. He says, can Mr. Fuller give us, now they're asking for your opinion, Mr. Fuller. He said, can Mr. Fuller give us opinion about the Miss Universe 2019 issues as a lot of non-white people bragging about it due to the fact that she is non-white?
The question is, she's
well, they're speaking about it because Miss Universe happened to was voted as whatever Miss Universe whatever that does. She was voted as the most. What is it, most beautiful or recognized or something like that? Anyway, the point is she was non-white. Up until now, I think they were all white, and this one is the first one that was non-white.
The first non-white Miss Universe?
Yes.
Well, from what I saw, I glanced at that program while it was on television, and from what I saw an indirect glorification of white supremacy. That's how I interpreted that whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the people who were the so-called quote-unquote contestants, I don't think they look like the average person of where they came from. Now, that's not all of them. That's not maybe most of them.
Mm-hmm.
But in looking at that, it looked like I would make a summation that the Miss Universe pageant, contest, or whatever they call it, was a direct or indirect glorification of white supremacy because of the appearance of the people who were in the presentation. They went by so-called nationality. Many of the people, regardless of nationality, appeared to be white.
Okay.
To me. They appeared to be classified, as white people in places where, and many of them came from places where huge numbers of the people in those places, from the information that I have, don't look like the people who were presented as representative of the quote-unquote nationalities that they quote-unquote represented. A representation, an average, you might say. Or, if you want to look at it from another perspective, the best-looking people. So, are we saying the best-looking people? Or people who, first of all, look like they are, quote-unquote, white people? And regardless of where they come from?
Mm-hmm.
Bangladesh, India, Brazil, Uruguay, Argentina. What are we talking about here? Nigeria? Now, I think that there was a lady from Nigeria that kind of looked like someone that I would expect to see from representative of Nigeria, of the place that they call Nigeria. I think she was one of the few. Now, there's serious questions about a lot of the rest, if I recall correctly. I'm here. Yes, just at a glance. Now, I could have it all incorrect, and somebody can correct me if they say, well, no. I mean, these people are very, 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 very representative of the average person that would really stand out, qualified to be labeled as Miss Universe. Of course, according to the code, we don't have universal people, period. We don't have anybody who's qualified to be called universal man or universal woman according to the code, because we're not talking about just appearances in bathing suits. I mean, that's no criteria at all. We're talking about all types of characteristics that you have to qualify for that. And that's something futuristic.
And yes, the usual suspects are in play big time. So right now, you cannot get a call through, and we are efforting to do that even as we speak. They are working on that. But we do have a bundle of Gmails, and so we will get to the Gmails. And you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY at gmail.com. You can also view the program if you go to the YouTube channel and type in Talktainment, and then Talktainment number 2. Scroll down to radio, scroll down and then type in the word radio, and you are there. You can also, and we would prefer it, that you go to the TalktainmentRadio.com homepage and just hit listen live, and you're right there. And finally, Facebook.com/Talktainment are the ways you can get it. Normally at this time I would give you the phone number, but you can't get in right now. But anyway, we will go on. Pardon me with my voice. It's this time of year where a lot of different kind of things are happening there. I even heard Mr. Fuller clear his voice, so maybe it's over there too. Okay, anyway, let's do this. This comes from Franklin, and he says this, Mr. Fuller, he was speaking about a recent show and that he much loved it, and that he equated some of the stuff that people were saying or white supremacy with Satanism. He said, that is how I view Mr. Fuller's words ever since I found you guys, and I love it. Mr. Fuller, I have a question. Mr. Fuller, are you familiar with the Bilderberg meetings, Davos, DAVOS, and the New World Order? If people would equate those meetings with white supremacy and how they are furthering their agenda at those meetings, I believe people will understand the code more deeply. Mr. Fuller, what are your thoughts on that?
What meeting?
I guess with the Bilderberg meetings, the Bilderberg group, maybe the CFR Council on Foreign Relations. I never heard of Davos. But I have heard of the New World Order, where a group of people get together and have meetings on how they're going to direct the world. He was just saying, if people would equate those meetings with white supremacy and how they're furthering their agenda, the agenda of white supremacy at those meetings, he says that I believe people will understand the code more deeply. Thanks. What is your opinion on that, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I'm not familiar with the details of those meetings, but according to compensatory counter-racist logic, and we're in a system of white supremacy. That's the world government. That's already established. So anything that a white supremacist does or says is to help to give strength to the system of white supremacy. So that's just a blanket coverage right there. So it's not a head scratcher.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that a white supremacist does should be immediately suspected, or a person who is a suspected white supremacist. You should suspect that person of whatever that person is doing. It is either directly or indirectly designed intentionally to give greater strength to the system of white supremacy. That's the logic. That's just the logic that goes with the system of racism. Racists don't do anything that they think is going to damage their business. That's their business. That's their whole reason for being. A racist mentality means I'm a racist, and everything that I do is to give strength to what I am as a racist, which means dominating and mistreating people of color in order to get what? The thing that everybody wants. But this is my method of getting it. And what is it that everybody wants? All creatures want fun, glory, and material comfort. And a racist has decided that the way that they will get those three things, fun, glory, and material comfort, from dominating and mistreating people based on color. That's what racism is for. So in answer to the question, regardless of what form it takes, and it takes all types of forms, just keep that in mind. That way you don't get confused. You don't have to say, well, are they doing this for that, and they're doing this for the other, and what is the reason they're doing this? No, anything that a racist does in any area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, is to give greater strength to the system of white supremacy. That's the logical assumption. Otherwise, the system of white supremacy would have gone out of business many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
All right? It would just, die from starvation, you might say. It's not being fed. So therefore, the racists have the strongest government that the world has ever seen, called the system of white supremacy. That's the name of the government. And it is maintained because the white supremacists are very serious about the business of white supremacy. They devote full time. They don't let up.
Okay. Alrighty, TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's a radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And our subject today is those that need the most help. I know I need help all the time, but Mr. Fuller talked about it, particularly with this term, the essence of justice, which I will have him re-explain to those who are just tuning in. Yes, we are having issues with our phone line, so you cannot call right now. The efforts is still going on. But it is at this time, which to me is the most important time of the program, where we have Mr. Fuller talk about the code book, listen to what he has to say, and then purchase the code book. Mr. Fuller, go ahead, please.
Yes. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com, producejustice.com. And I just like to say this. This is something I was looking through the book this morning and whatnot, and some people have said that the 1984 edition is a better written book than the 2016 revised expanded edition. And that could be, in some people's opinion and whatnot. It might be a minority opinion, but it is an opinion that should be considered. And but I see where the revised expanded edition has a lot more in it. And the book is written for the individual victim of racism. Now, a lot of people say, well, I don't like to think of myself as a victim of racism. Well, racism does have victims. And a lot of people who consider themselves the victims of a car wreck will say it without even thinking about it twice. They'll say, were you a victim of a car wreck? I mean, you were parked there on the car and you just sitting there on the parking lot and your car wasn't moving. And all of a sudden, I mean, this person who was texting just happens to be coming onto the parking lot. And because they were texting, they ran right into your car while you were parked. So when the officers got there to find out what happened, they say, well, now, who's the victim here? I mean, so a person has no problem saying, I'm the victim. I mean, and this is the person who they were texting or doing something. They weren't paying attention to what they were doing because I was parked. My car wasn't moving. And they broadsided me on the driver's side. And luckily I didn't get injured and whatnot, but here's the big dent in my car. So a person will say, I'm the victim. But it seems to be a lot of controversy when it comes to non-white people saying, I'm the victim of racism. They say, oh, don't say that. There you go with that victimization thing. But victims of a robbery, victims of rape, they have no problem with that. Victims of someone who was a drunken driver, maybe, that destroyed your vehicle, and probably some other people who were killed, maybe. Somebody was victimized, victim of a burglary, all kinds of victims. Victims, and 9/11 victims. Oh, big-time victims. Okay, buildings coming down after planes crash into them. People have no problem saying these people were victimized. They were victimized. They were just there minding their own business and doing what they were doing, and all of a sudden, I mean, somebody made a victim out of them. Well, this textbook is written for victims of white supremacy, and I see no reason to apologize for naming it that. Is textbook workbook for victims of white supremacy. White supremacy has victims. Otherwise, it would be a great thing if white supremacy didn't have victims, if nobody was being victimized. Slavery has victims. A victim of slavery, people have no problems with that. So you get the book by going to producejustice.com, and it's directed to the individual person who is a victim of racism, about what to do about it on a daily basis. That's what the book is about. Not just about what the problem is. There are tons and tons of books talking about what the problem is. In fact, in my own opinion, I say that every book that's written from now on should be about what to do about the problem and what an individual can do. We need more books, more tons of them, if necessary, about what to do each and every minute, about every situation that comes up. That's what we need more of. We already have books that tell about the problems, and these books are needed. They should be read about analyzing the problem, why we have it, and all this, the history of it. But go to producejustice.com. Now, I'd like to say this, too. I describe the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept textbook as one of the best of the very worst, poorly written books for counter-racist thought, speech, and action ever produced. Now, that's my own evaluation of my own book.
Why?
I think that my book is poorly written because it's not explicit enough in simple language. I think I could have made it with a very concentrated effort. I should have concentrated. I should have focused on simplicity. Simplicity, straight to the point, third grade language. And I didn't do that. So I rate my own book as being poorly written, but it is one of the best of the poorly written books, in my opinion. But that's given an objective analysis of my own work.
Okay.
But I do say that people ought to buy it in a compensatory way, simply because there's not a whole lot of books out here that tell you what to do about anything. And all books that black people write now should be not, how many words you can use and how, how you sound when you repeat what was being written and whatnot. Hey, it's about the mechanics. What do you do about stuff? Get it done. What do you do about a problem that you have right this minute? And you don't want a whole lot of ceremony about it. You want this problem resolved right now. Not next week, not tomorrow and whatnot. You got this problem right now. And you don't want a whole lot of flowery speeches about this, that, and the other. You just want to solve this problem right now. You're hurting right now. And black people all over the world, non-white people all over the world, people of color all over the world are hurting right this minute. They want instant solutions. And that's what everybody should be concentrating on. Everybody who's sitting down to write anything right now should be saying, hey, I'm about problem solving. I mean, and in record time. I'm not talking about some long, drawn-out struggle. We have used these terms too long, and it's gotten in the way of people doing anything or getting anything done. And just wearing kente cloth and putting on some sandals, that was nice inspiration from the 1960s. We're going into the year 2020. Everything should be about, hey, we want to solve this in the next 5 minutes. Whatever problem comes up. Can you solve this problem in 5 minutes? Everybody should be shooting for that goal or less. 5 minutes or less. For whatever problem comes up, directly, indirectly, associated with the race problem or any other problem. Black people should be known to be people who are about problem solving rather than problem making.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, and go to producejustice.com.
Okay. Just got an update on our situation concerning the usual suspects. A technician or technicians are coming out, and they're going to work on the problem. So that means that you cannot we cannot receive any phone calls. We don't know what happened. This is their expertise, so they will do what they do with that to get that up.
Problem solved.
Yeah, solve that problem, yes. But we will, if you choose to Gmail me, you can. The numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. One person already has, but Mr. Fuller answered his question. But if you would like to get in contact with the show, that's why. That's how you can do that today. The phone is not going to work today. So we will continue to read Gmails. And if you do Gmail me, I will read it from the top. I won't put it in the, or they won't put it in the pile for me. But that's part of the thing. The show must go on, and people want to hear this show, Mr. Fuller. I don't think people will agree with you on your estimation of your assessment of your book, because I hear people, at least in my circle, speaking about it, and they appear to be hungry. But not only here, but the brothers and sisters in South Africa, they are so pleased to get the book, and open up the brother in Denmark, I believe, or the brother in Spain, Aaron in Spain. They're 5 minutes. How many minutes? 10? Oh, okay. Thank you. 10 more minutes. Okay, we have to do that because we're working with a handicap here. People are really interested, Mr. Fuller, in getting this book and hearing what you have to, and beginning to put them into practice. This is why they have many questions, because it's new to them. Somebody is actually, and that somebody is you, addressing the problems and things what they are feeling. So To them, at least what I get, Mr. Fuller, it is simplify your language that you used because nobody really has sat down and told them that. What say you to that?
Well, people can make their own evaluation. That comes under VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification.
Yes.
The people who say that, they're qualified to say it. But in evaluating my own book, I'm qualified to say that, well, it could be a whole lot better than it was written, the way that it was written. More direct. I have a roundabout way of saying some things and whatnot.
You mean through example, you mean?
Well,
that you give?
I could have given better examples, too, and not, I couldn't crowd enough examples in, maybe, and maybe there were some things that needed more explanation than other things. But I did the best that I could with the time that I had, and at that time, because I was trying to rush, particularly with the revised expanded edition, and because I wanted to get that out. I want to have, I never know how long I'm going to be here.
Okay.
So none of us do.
Here's a question that comes up all the time is, of course, I don't have the answer to that. Only you could answer that. But I'm often approached with this question, well, why didn't Mr. Fuller speak about health as being one of the 9 people activities?
Because a lot of people have asked that question. And I just didn't think of it for one thing, because I thought that maybe if I covered the 9 areas that I presented, that if we were healthy, healthy in economics, healthy, economics, mostly I would put health under economics. What is economics? The use of time and energy. Well, those are the 2 things that all of us have. We have time and we have energy. Now, your energy comes from your health conditions. So therefore, you pay attention to everything, eating and sleeping correctly, and only as necessary. That within itself goes a long ways. That's one of the 4 things that you use your time and energy for, according to the textbook itself. Use of time and energy. That's on page 60 of the revised expanded edition. And one of the things that's in there is eating and sleeping correctly, and only as necessary. Now, just on that alone.
Yes, I see.
A lot of people don't have that problem throughout the world. I mean, places we call Africa. I mean, having enough food is a huge problem in most parts of the world. But in the northwestern hemisphere, many black people have access to what is called food, but it's artificial food. It's not really food. It's imitation food. And that's why we're in such sorry condition when it comes to health. We eat a lot, but we're eating a lot of plastic. We're not eating real food. And they call them in what we call, quote, black neighborhoods, they call them what? Food deserts.
Yeah, food deserts, yes.
Many of them, right. You can't find any. Everything is made out of paper and plastic.
Yes.
Sprinkle a whole lot of sugar on some paper and call it food. Put a whole lot of glue and whatnot, sugared glue, salty glue, around a whole bunch of plastic and paper in a ball, and then eat it and call it food. And that's under the system of white supremacy. That's what's being done. So that's not going to give you much energy with the time that you have. And so we all leave here sooner than we should on account of that.
And then that 4th thing there, engaging in sexual intercourse, no more than 2 or 3 times every 7 days?
Every 7 days. Now, that's going to crimp a whole lot of people's style, you might say, because a lot of us, out of desperation for wanting to have, well, glory and fun, sex is a lot of fun, and you can get some glory out of it. I mean, many black males feel like that helps to prove their manhood, how many females they can have sexual intercourse with. So that needs to be limited. And the reason is because it comes under time and energy. When you're having marathon sex, that means you're not doing other things that would be of more constructive value. And marathon sex usually leads to a whole lot of things that are non-constructive, and a whole lot of dissatisfied people in the end. So if you limit that sexual activity, sexual intercourse, to twice every 7 days, that means that the rest of the time you're doing something else. Now, the something else that you're supposed to be doing is supposed to be of more constructive value than marathon sex.
Yes.
I mean, just one sex partner right after another and staying in a bed, having sexual intercourse as many times as you possibly can, endlessly, day after day, and missing doing what? Sometimes going to work, so that you will have a bed that you're not going to be put out of. That bed is going to be on the street.
Yes.
And there's going to be an eviction notice on the door of wherever that bed was. If you spend a lot of time and energy in a bedroom and you miss bringing in the revenue that will sustain your bedroom activities.
Yes.
That's just the logic of it.
Now, on that page 60, in the first two under time and energy, you just had mentioned previously, what can you do? And I looked at number 1 and number 2. It said producing, building, repairing, studying, writing, asking questions. All these are constructive activities, would you not say?
Yes, these things come under economics, which is in area 1, and they're the first 4 things that are outlined in the book, right out the gate. I mean, and they cover just about everything. If you're not doing one of these 4 things, that is an alarm bell that goes off. Starting with number 1, producing, building, repairing, improving, and or cleaning. Those things that have a constructive value and using them for constructive purposes only.
Only, yes.
Now, if you are doing that, that's the top of the list. Starting with that first word, producing. What do the black people of this world produce? All over the world now, if we be honest, are we a productive people? Are we known for our great productions? For our constructive productions? Okay, we do repair some things that somebody else produced. I mean, but we don't do a lot of that either because we're not allowed to or not in position to.
Okay.
Building, improving. These are characteristics that are supposed to be characteristics of us. Producing, improving, building, repairing, cleaning. Those things that have a constructive value and using them for constructive purposes only. Now, somebody right now somewhere cleaning a 9mm pistol. Are they going to use that for something constructive? Somebody black right now, while I'm talking, is cleaning a 9mm automatic pistol and getting ready to put it in his belt, most likely a him. And he's going out to do what? Produce something, repair something. He says, well, I'm going to repair my economic condition with this pistol because I don't have any money. And I'm going to use this pistol to get it. Well, now, there's a stipulation there in the code book. Now, that's doing something all right. That's use of time and energy all right. But is it going to produce a constructive result? Is it going to produce a constructive result according to your own, the person who's doing it, your own scheduling, your own outlook on your future? Are you going to, with that 9mm pistol, produce a future for yourself that you are absolutely pleased with. Couldn't be no better than this.
All right, Mr. Fuller, got to cut that one right there. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power, the world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty, welcome to the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our subject today is those who need the most help. We definitely need the most help today because of the fact that we are having some technical issues sponsored by the usual suspects. Don't ask me why, because I don't know, but it is here. We are efforting to get that fixed. I was told while I'm on the air, that technicians are on the way to see what the problem is and solve the problem so we can have a show. What that means for you is the 800 number, 877-932-9766 number, is not going to be effective for you to call in with your questions today. However, you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, and I will make an exception and send you right to the top of the line, since this is not your fault. We have on the line Neely Fuller Jr. live from Washington, D.C., and he's been answering questions, in particular old or other Gmail questions that has come in. So you can do that by, again, 7 Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. You can view the program if you'd like by going to going to the YouTube channel and typing in the word Talktainment. Scroll down and type in Talktainment number 2, and then you'll scroll again and type in radio, and you can see and hear the program. You can also listen to it as you are on the TalkTainmentRadio.com homepage. Just click Listen Live. And also Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you can hear the rebroadcast of the program. I apologize for my voice trying to come down with something that I don't want, but nevertheless, we're going to effort to do what we can. Mr. Fuller, this is from the Gmails. The question is this. It says, Mr. Fuller, if there exists such a thing as a white person that does not practice or has never practiced white supremacy racism, would it be accurate to say this group of whites are so few, if they exist at all, that they are statistically insignificant?
Yes, the white people who do not believe in white supremacy are not effective. If they were effective, we wouldn't be having this conversation right
true.
now.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the measure according to the code. You either have it or you don't. You either have white supremacy or you don't. You do have white supremacy. It's the strongest, most powerful political system, religious system, and governmental system as a whole in recorded history. Now, that statement is either true or false. The system of white supremacy is the most powerful government that the world has ever seen, experienced, form of government. Out of all the different governments that have come and gone, the system of white supremacy is now, here in the year 2019, the most powerful government that ever existed in recorded history. It's not called that, but that's exactly what it is. A government that's based on dominating and mistreating people based on color. That's the most powerful government that has ever appeared, the most powerful religion that has ever been actually practiced in recorded history. And that's what we have now. And so the white people who do not believe, in answer to the question, in white supremacy are not as powerful and not as smart as the white people who do believe in white supremacy.
Did you say not as smart?
Not as smart. See, smart people get things done. That's just the nature of being smart. Black people are ignorant people when it comes to the system of white supremacy. We are ignorant. Why? Because if we were smart, we wouldn't be victims of white supremacy. We wouldn't be talking about white supremacy. Racism wouldn't exist if we were smart. So we're not as smart as the people that dominate us. Smart people cannot be dominated. Ignorant people are dominated. That's just the nature of it. That's the logic. Now, I know that hurts people's feelings.
Yes, it does.
A lot of black people will say, well, the white supremacists are not smart. They are just cunning, and they are evil. Well, you can be smart and be cunning and evil. That's not impossible. Yes. If you have evil intent and you are able to outsmart everybody with your evil intent, that's still being smart. Now, a person, it depends on how you want to use the word smart, and a lot of people have had problems with that word smart. Smart, what does smart mean? Means you are able to do what you want to do, and nobody's able to stop you from doing it. Now, that's one criteria for being smart. You want to do something, you figure out a way to do it, like the white supremacists have done, and people who are opposed to you doing it are not smart enough to come up with ideas that will stop you from doing what it is that you are doing, even though what you're doing may be evil. The people who say that they are good and they believe in being good and they believe in everybody being good are not smart enough to stop you from being evil, then that means that they are not smart. They're ignorant when it comes to doing their business of overcoming evil. They're not smart. They are not smart. They are not smart in the business of overcoming evil. They say, I'd really like to overcome this evil of racism, but I can't figure out how to do it. Well, if you can't figure out how to do it, that means you're not smart. That's why. You're not smart enough to figure it out. And the people who were able to do what they are doing to you were smart enough to figure out how to do it and get away with it. End of story. Now, if that hurts your feelings, so be it. But that's the truth of the matter. It means you got to do what? Get smart enough to outsmart the people who are evil enough to do evil things to you.
Okay.
It means you have to do some thinking. You can't just lollygag and think that, well, it shouldn't be this way, and I'm going to consider myself smart, even though the people who tell me what to do have outsmarted me to my detriment. But I'm not going to spend no time trying to get smart. I'm going to spend time talking about and thinking about how smart I already am. Now, that's not logical.
Yes.
That's not a way to solve problems. The first step toward solving a problem is to recognize that you don't know how to solve the problem. Because if you know how to solve the problem's been solved.
Yes.
That's the logic.
Okay. TalkToHim@radio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. And here's a few that I'm going to share with you. Stairway to Heaven, Conversation with Don Carina, and On the Move with Sports Celts. Now, these shows are exclusive to TalkToHim@radio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkToHim@radio.com homepage, and you can click on programs, and then there is a current list of the programming that Talk to Him at Radio has. Give it a listen. We call that in radio a sample. Check it out, see if you like it or not. And if you do, well, then hit a subscribe and then put the like button on it. All this from TalkToHim@radio.com, radio, the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and our topic is those who need the most help. Yes, and Mr. Fuller has been addressing that by various examples, and we will discuss his book at the 45-minute mark of this second hour, and donations are coming in. We're at the $600 mark, and that's good. We need to wipe that out. Here's a question for you, Mr. Fuller. Excuse my voice, as I appear to be losing it. It says, Mr. Fuller, should non-white people look for and invest time and energy looking for white people who are not racist?
No. No, you don't do that. If they are not racist, just in your normal comings and goings, everybody has to be somewhere every day. So what you do, according to the code, you assume that every white person who is able to be a racist in a racist system probably is one. So that's just an automatic assumption. That's why you shouldn't get bent out of shape, or you might say upset about what you call racial incidents. Everything is a racial incident. You are drowning in racial incidents because you are born into a system of racism. So if somebody says something that's racist on a job or something like that, that shouldn't startle you. That goes with the territory. We are prisoners of war. We are born in a racist system. And a racist system is war. And black people who are on this planet now, regardless of where they are in prison You're born in prison. So if something happens that reminds you that you're in a prison, well, what is new? I mean, if you're in a prison, when you're doing something, running a machine, or texting, or driving a car, or driving a truck, or running a business, or doing whatever you're doing, you might not be, quote unquote, conscious of the bigger picture of where you are. But if you look at the entire planet, for a black person as being a prison, and you are a prisoner of war in that prison, you shouldn't be startled by anything that reminds you of where you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way it works.
Yes.
And so this serves a very constructive purpose in thinking that way. Because if you're in a prison, you're supposed to be reminded that you're in a prison. That way, you will one day, or sooner than you wouldn't under other circumstances, where your mind is somewhere else, you would erode, because that's the only way. There's no way to break out of this prison. You can only erode the prison so that the prison is no longer a prison, because this government, called the system of white supremacy, never should have existed in the first place.
In the first place, yes.
Right. So since it does exist, and it is the only world government that we're experiencing, you have to erode it. You can't break out of it. You have to erode it from the inside, because the inside of it is where you are. There's no such thing as breaking out and then working to destroy it from the outside. That's not logical.
Yes.
When the entire planet and the entire universe as we know it, the known universe, is dominated by the white supremacists. There's nowhere to run.
Yes.
So you have to work from where you are.
Okay.
From inside the prison.
All right. All right. Gmail question. It's from the brother up in Canada. He wrote this, Mr. Fuller. It says, always tell the truth about what your ultimate goal is. He said, question from Mr. Fuller. On page 185 in the expanded version of the code book, in bold letters, Mr. Fuller states, quote, always tell the truth about what your ultimate goal is, end of quote. Do not pretend your ultimate goal is to replace white supremacy with justice, when in truth your ultimate goal is something else. Mr. Fuller, what questions can you ask yourself to find out a truthful answer?
Every person should wake up every morning and go to that 4 wants, because your ultimate goal is whatever it is that you really want. And that's on page 171 of the revised expanded edition of the textbook, 171 and 172. That's where those wants are. There are 4 wants. And I've repeated those on this program many times. I'll do it again. And that is, what do I want to do? You ask yourself that wherever you are. Ask yourself these 4 basic questions every day, all day. What do I want to do? Why do I want to do what I want to do? How do I plan to do what I want to do? And what do I expect the constructive result to be? Now, everybody on the planet, directly, indirectly, actually ask themselves these questions, probably not in that order. But you should ask yourself those questions and be honest with yourself. See, because everything starts with yourself. Everything that's going to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And people lie to themselves about what they want. If you ask a person, what do you want to do with your life? The average person will say something that's not true at all. Because, or even if they say something that's not true at all, because they haven't even thought about it in that context. But you want to do something. You want to do something every minute of each day. But what do you want to do ultimately? Well, among black people, and this is just my own assessment, I have observed, and I could be incorrect, more than anything, the black people of this planet want to show off to other black people more than they want to do anything else. They want to do a lot of things, but that's the main thing. The way we fix our hair. If we go and get a tattoo, what is that tattoo for? Stop and think about it. That's something you wanted to do. You wanted to get a tattoo. Now, why did you want to go and get a tattoo on your dark skin? And you go and get a tattoo that looks like a sore, because that's what it's going to look like on dark skin. It's going to look like a malformation. I'm going to say that because that's true. That's what it's going to look like to a person that observes it. Now, you're a person with black skin, and you go in and put some paint or some type of etching on your dark skin. Your skin is already the way it ought to be. But you're going to improve it with a so-called tattoo. Why? Because you heard that that's what people are doing.
You heard.
And you want to show off your tattoo because somebody down the street got one. Okay? See, always think about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yes, sir.
And most black people want to do whatever it is that they heard that black people are supposed to be doing, no matter what it is. If black people, if you hear a rumor that black people are doing this is the latest thing,
Mm-hmm.
black people are buying this, going to the store and buying this, you want one instantly. Why? So you can help to show off to other black people.
Yeah, show off.
Show off. It's all about show-offism. Now, is that a constructive goal? Black people showing off to each other. Well, let's examine it. It's like what? Prisoners of war or slaves showing off their chains to other slaves. Look, my chains are shinier than yours. Now, a question is raised. Is this a constructive activity? For the slaves at the bottom of a ship, all of them chained together, being shipped somewhere in service to someone else, not to themselves.
Right.
And they have on chains, and one slave looks at the other slave and says, my chains are shinier than your chains. Ha, ha, ha.
Wow.
And that is the basic philosophy of black people in 2019 all over the planet, right this minute, truth be told.
Wow.
That's exactly where our minds are in 2019.
In 2019.
Now, I either told the truth or I didn't. Is that our goal? Is that what we want more than anything? And I'm saying, from my observation, unless I have missed something here, and people can correct me, from my observation, that's the conclusion I have come to. We have gone no further than that. People have asked, well, how much progress have black people made?
Wow.
We have made any, on account of our goal doesn't go any further than showing off to other black people.
Okay. We are speaking about help, and Mr. Fuller, this is from this brother. He said, thank you, Mr. Fuller, and good morning. He said, I love your responses because they were absolutely logical and they're without emotion. A few programs ago, your program was phenomenal, but to be truthful, all the programs seem to be that way of late. And a female caller who asked about emotions, many of us, Mr. Fuller, struggle with emotions. The gentleman that called about other victims being off code, and you, Mr. Fuller, stressed the importance of the concept of United Independent. That was brilliant. Many of us are confused about how things work in the prison system. Mr. Fuller's, your analogy about the prison system and milling around in the prison yard was brilliant. Excellent, life-changing information. I hope it helps others like it has helped me. Do you have any more information that you could share on that, or any more analogies?
No, I don't at this time, but I've certainly been looking into it, because using the prison analogies, the comparison of black people, in other words, in making an assessment of where we really are, I think using that prison comparison is kind of something that people can familiarize themselves with instantly. I mean, because so many black males in the northwestern hemisphere and throughout the world have experienced what you call greater confinement, what the code calls greater confinement. But actually, we're confined by being people of color. And our prison uniform is our skin color, according to the white supremacists. We're born in jail. So you have a ready-made prison uniform just by having color in your skin. A white supremacist points out, yon goes a person with color in his or her skin. That is a prisoner of mine. If that white person is a white supremacist, that person is a prisoner that I can do anything with. That person is already in my prison, in every area of activity, completely dependent upon me, cannot do anything without my permission, on my planet or in my universe. And that is a lot of power to have. And that is a wonderful ego trip for every person who is born, and it's not their fault to be born white, but they are introduced to the system that they are in when they come into the world. And they become aware of this because people tell them, now you are a white person. There's all kinds of people on the planet, short people, tall people, males, females, all kind of creatures on the planet, all kind of birds, all kind of bees. But among people, you're in a system where being white is a wonderful thing to have when you're born, because it means you're royal. Now, as a royal member of the royal family of whiteness, you will be punished for doing certain things, and you will be ostracized in ways within the royal family from time to time for things that you do or don't do. You will be penalized. But the main thing that you have to concentrate on if you're white is your whiteness, because it means you are a member of the royal family, even though you might not be a favored member at any given time. Mm-hmm. But you are favored when it comes to all these non-white people, because you are the master of all of them. And people have paved the way for you. Now, you can accept it or reject it. Now, most people, if they're born into a royal situation, if they're born into a palace-type situation, they don't want to reject that. They don't say, well, I don't think that's the correct way to do business on this planet, so I'm going to renounce my royal title. I'm not going to participate in the family business. Like the Corleones, in the movie The Godfather, whatnot. Michael said he didn't want to participate in the family business, but hey, if you're born into the family business, most likely you're going to wind up in the family business. So that's just a dilemma that white people are faced with, if you can call it a dilemma, here in 2019, that they inherited a racist system. And it's up to them to make that call about whether they're going to get rid of all the luxuries that go with being white. Because a lot of white people will say, well, nobody never gave me anything. I don't have nothing. These black people talking about they, been denied this and denied that. I work for everything I get, and blah, 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 blah. Well, the record shows that ways were paved for you if you're white. And there are substantial benefits that go with being white that you don't automatically get if you're a person of color.
Yes.
That's what white supremacy is about. If there were no benefits connected with it, white people themselves would reject it. I mean, but there are benefits to it. That's just the way it is. So it's not personal, it's business.
It's business. Okay. TalkToHim@radio.com. We go where you go. Download the TalkToHim@radio.com app to your cell or tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and our topic today is those that need the most help. But it is at this time that we have Mr. Fuller speak about his book. And Mr. Fuller, go ahead, please.
You can go to producejustice.com, and what will come up on the screen is the method for ordering the one of the 3 volumes, or all 3, or the 2 that are really the ones that I focus on. That's the Revised Expanded Edition 2016, and the Word Guide, which came out in 2010, even before the Revised Expanded Edition. And the Revised Expanded Edition is an update of the 1984 edition, which is also there. It has computer design on the cover.
Yes.
Some people have said that they prefer that book to the 2016 edition.
Right.
Or that they like to have both books, even though everything, for the most part, that's in the original 1984 edition, the one with the computer design, is covered, and even more so and in greater depth in the Revised Expanded Edition. But that's just a personal preference on the part of some people. I just say go to the basic book, Revised Expanded Edition, 2016, and the Word Guide. That's the focus. That should be adequate. Or just the Revised Expanded Edition itself, and without the Word Guide, if you prefer. But I say the Word Guide is an excellent supplement to the Revised Expanded Edition. Go to producejustice.com in order to get it. And the book is designed to help the individual person. You don't have to be an organizational person or be a member of an organization. It's designed to help you do whatever needs to be done on a daily basis if you're a person of color anywhere on the planet. That's what the book is supposed to be designed to do.
Yes.
Go to producejustice.com.
Okay. More Gmails. It says, Mr. Fuller, many white people seem uncomfortable with racism, which is the system of white supremacy, and yet glorify it, losing sight of the way that their representation of the world, the one that they use on a daily basis requires them to consider everything that is non-white, that is black, as a thing to hate, to denigrate, and to despise. All of this is based on an idea, concept, a manufactured way of thinking, an idea based on their skin color that they have called white represents the pinnacle of creation. White skin as a divine reference, and black skin, that is dark skin, as absolute evil. Not everyone understands it, and yet that is what is taught to them every second. Their language consistently supports this idea. Their representation that affects their relationships with all the non-white people on the planet and in all areas of people activity, economics, education, entertainment, politics, work, law, religion, sex, and war. This ideal serves as a battle horse for the domination and abuse of the non-white people in a direct and indirect way. That is what white supremacy represents. This person is in a foreign country, given what, his opinion. I guess you could call it VGQ.
That would come under VGQ.
Yeah.
Did they ask a question?
I was reading it, and no, it didn't seem like there was a question. He was in this particular country that he's in. This is what he's apparently facing. So he just put it to thought. But there was
that's VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification, according to what's in the textbook. He's qualified to make those remarks, and that is his view, and people should think about his view.
Yes.
Since it's being presented.
Yes.
All speech and action is something to think about. And the main thing you look for first when anybody says anything about a condition, is it true? Not who is saying it, but is it true? It's either going to be true or false when somebody describes a situation. So some people have told me there's no such thing as white supremacy. So why am I talking about something that doesn't exist? And I say, well, that comes under VGQ too. If a person takes the position there's no such thing as racism, it doesn't exist, well, that's that person's opinion. And that person, each person is entitled to his or her own opinion.
But wouldn't they have to back that up, Mr. Fuller?
No, they wouldn't have to do anything. See, that's why I put VGQ in the textbook. It's to keep black people from arguing with each other.
Mm-hmm.
To eliminate arguments altogether.
But if a statement is made like that, wouldn't the question be, well, what proof do you have that...
You can ask that question.
Okay.
But the person doesn't have to provide it. Well, and the reason for that is very logical. You don't want to get back to that slave ship analogy that I have presented before. One black person, because a part of show-offism is one black person saying that they know more about racism than another black person.
Okay, but you said...
That is something that is absolutely prohibited by the code.
Oh, okay, I get that part, but what about this? If a person makes a statement like that, then this question would have to be made. Is that statement that person made true or not true? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, then if you do that, then what is that going to be based on? What that person's testimony of it. I mean, they would have to answer that question. Why do you say that's true, sir, ma'am?
The problem here is that word having to. The person doesn't really have to do anything. And we shouldn't try to force the person to do anything. We just say, like the code says, you say. That's why that's in the code book. Well, he said what he said, or she said what she said. And let's let it turn it loose. We got to learn how to do that.
But if they say that to you...
If they say that to me, people have said to me, Fuller, your entire book is off track. I mean, it's completely worthless. It ain't like one of the first people that read my book said, I don't see nothing in there that I can use. And I said, that's exactly the way the book is supposed to work.
Yes, I remember you saying that, yes.
And I repeat that, and I mean what I say when I say that. That's exactly the way that the book is supposed to work. The book is based on a need, fulfilling a need. If there's nothing in that book that will help a person fulfill the need that person says that he or she has, then the person has no use for the book.
Okay, but I'm looking at your book and reading your book, and the statements that you have made in your book are backed up by the facts as you presented them. And the question was, are these true? Are these facts true or not true? And you
can ask that question, but the person doesn't have to answer. That's the key.
Okay.
That's the VGQ factor.
Don't have to answer.
That is to serve what purpose? To keep black people from arguing about racism.
Yes.
Or about anything. Black people should stop having arguments about anything. Conversations, but not arguments.
Okay. I'm going to have to work with myself. I'm going to have to work with that one because...
Yes, sir. No more arguments at all. A person gives their opinion. You say, well, he said what he said. or she said what she said.
But let me ask you this. What are opinions based on?
Based on whatever the person wants to base it on. That's the united independent factor. That's why I wrote the book. As a part of that. That's a crucial part of the book. So that black people don't spend a whole lot of time arguing with each other at the bottom of the slave ship.
Okay.
About their condition. Why? Because it doesn't work. That's why. It produces nothing that's of constructive value. Arguments produce nothing but what? Other arguments.
So it's okay for you to ask, okay, Mary, you made this statement. Is it okay to ask, well, Mary, why did you make that statement?
Yes, you can ask any
But
question.
she doesn't have to answer why she made that statement.
She doesn't have to answer.
Okay.
She can say, my answer, if she's answering by answering, saying, my answer is I don't have to answer, and ain't gonna.
Now,
I'm not going to explain nothing to you.
Is that logical for her to say something like that?
Yes, it's logical if that's what she thinks that she should do.
Okay.
All right? Because what is the point of me saying all of that I have said? Is to keep black people at the bottom of the slave ship from arguing about their condition. Why? Because it doesn't produce anything of constructive value. That's why.
Okay. I got
the
that
record
part,
has shown that. Black people have had every type of argument, barbershop arguments, beauty shop arguments, bus station arguments that you can name. Every type of argument that you can possibly have. Whether Brother Malcolm was on the right track or Martin Luther King. Black people can argue and argue and argue and argue, and at the end of the day, if you notice, absolutely nothing changes as a result.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Now, you're right about that, because I have heard about share of barbershop arguments. You are right about that one. Whoa.
The white supremacists look back and say, well, you're all arguing about me. I'm still in charge. I mean, so nobody's figured out what to do about me. I don't care how long you argue. I don't care about your arguments. You're not arguing with me, taking up my time, because I'm doing my thing. That's the white supremacists. I knock all your heads together in the middle of your argument.
Yeah. Yeah, that is true. Oh, well. Okay,
no,
yeah.
So no more arguments. I mean, we should go into this year 2020 having learned that by now.
Mm-hmm.
Black people don't argue about nothing. We offer our opinion, and we say, well, he said what he said. That's what the code says. That's how you respond. He said what he said. He said, well, full of somebody said that your book ain't about nothing, blah, 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 blah. What do you got to say about that? And I am duty bound, according to what I have written myself, to have one response. Well, he said what he said.
Fuller
I
said
say what I say. He said what he said.
Fuller said what he said, period.
Take your choice.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah.
Take your choice between what he said and what I said. Or you can say, ain't neither one of them talking about nothing.
So whatever whatever Fuller said does not necessarily have to make sense to me. He said what he said. Am I correct?
It will make sense to the person that it makes sense to.
Okay.
See, that's what I mean by follow the logic.
Okay.
Whatever logic, leads you to logic. Whatever leads you to logic. And if a person says, well, you're not being logical, all right, then the person says, well, I still say what I say. All right? Now, what you going to do about it? What are we supposed to do now? Fight? I mean, that's not an improvement.
Yeah.
So you just say, okay, you said what you said. People can listen to what you said. And if it helps them to do whatever needs to be done, so be it. And if it doesn't, so be it.
Wow. Yeah. That actually, last part, I actually understand that part there. We're not going to argue. Okay.
No more arguments about nothing. Why? Because it doesn't produce anything. That's why. Now, what's the difference between an argument and a conversation? A conversation is about problem solving. Did it solve a problem? That's how you know it was a conversation. An argument was a problem solved. You will know that was an argument when it didn't solve a problem.
Well, guess what? I think we're going to have to leave it there because we are right at the end of the program. Good conversation. Sorry about we didn't get any calls through, but we already know that the usual suspects were in place. So let me say this, talktainmentradio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. We will see you next week. I believe it's going to be the last show of 2019. So we'll put that into play. Talktainmentradio.com, radio the way it should be heard. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, and thanks for listening. Talktainmentradio.com, radio the way it should be heard. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power, the world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.